Vladimir Putin retains for now his stranglehold on power in the Kremlin, but there is a name being thrown around as a potential coup leader if there was to be internal revolt against him in response to the invasion of Ukraine. His name is Alexander Bortnikov. He's the current head of Russia's spy agency, the FSB, and that's a successor to the KGB. There's said to be a degree of tension between the two and belief that Bortnikov is one of very few individuals capable of leading a coup against Putin. For more on this, let's bring in Alexey Muraviev. He's an Associate Professor of National Security and Strategic Studies at Curtin University, specialising in Russia's strategic and defence policy. Thanks very much for your time. First of all, what do you make of this, what's being written at the moment? And this is coming partly from Ukrainian intelligence. Do you see any prospect of a coup, first of all, and would Bortnikov be the most likely person to be in charge afterwards?
Well, first of all, let's compartmentalize the issue. I mean, yes, we have to basically take claims made by the Ukrainian intelligence carefully, because obviously in times of war, both the Russians and the Ukrainians, the two primary sides involved in the conflict, would be feeding both accurate information but also disinformation. In terms of potential for a coup, yes, I believe there may be a potential for the coup, but not for the reasons that we want to assume and understand. If the coup is to take place and the coup would be executed by, say, Russia's security, law enforcement, or the Russian military for that matter, it's not because they want to stop the war. It's because they would want to win the war, to see the success of the war. I think that there has been quiet tensions between Russian intelligence community and Russia's President Vladimir Putin, because clearly there's been a clear error of judgment that was made, and it was probably driven by Putin himself about the situation in Ukraine, about the initial planning and the initial phase of the invasion, where the Russian military naturally assumed that they're going there as liberators rather than the invaders. And I think that sort of false narrative was presented to them by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, and when it fired back, when the Russians began taking heavy casualties, Putin began quietly blaming the security services, which I don't think went really well, also because he is coming from within the security apparatus, so he would know better.
So the point you make is part of the blame game, and the biggest miscalculation, as you point out, is the extent to which the Ukrainians would fight, their mindset, and also their ability to do that as well, and both were massive misjudgments. Putin has blamed the FSB, and that could actually engender some ill will and mean that the FSB's main man, if you like, is part of the takeover.
Look, I mean, first of all, we need to be quite clear. FSB is Russia's counterintelligence service. It's not responsible primarily for collecting foreign intelligence. It's responsible, it has the power of Russia's equivalent of FBI. They're doing a little bit of intelligence work, but they are not the primary intelligence collection agency. However, they have significant power because they're in control of Russia's counterterrorism operations. That what really gave Alexander Bortnikov significant prominence, because he's been in the job since 2008, and the fact that he was appointed by Putin's predecessor, Dmitry Medvedev, suggests that he is a trustworthy person in the eyes of the Kremlin. The fact that he hasn't been dismissed since 2008, and the FSB is also responsible for the economic, for the investigation of economic crimes. So clearly, they have files on the Russian oligarchs, and that obviously creates this possible strong link between the oligarchs and the chief of FSB. But again, we should not be assuming that the oligarchs may actually try to manipulate Bortnikov in trying to overthrow Putin because they want the war to stop. Rather than, I think, if Bortnikov may in fact be behind the plotters, is because someone inside the Russian political security and defense hierarchy wants someone even more hardline than Putin to run the country rather than Putin.
Yeah, which is a worry for the rest of the world when you talk about that approach from Bortnikov. So what about the prospect then of something different, of anyone else taking over, or a different push for the takeover, I suppose, and that would theoretically be in part oligarchs that realise their way of life and their ability to, live it up, has perhaps changed forever now, at least when they're outside of Russia or Russian-friendly territories, and whether or not there is any building groundswell within Russia for opposition to this war, for the fact that they are now seen as a pariah.
Look, this is a really important question, and I think this is once again where we need to have a clarity about the situation. What happened over the past 47 or something days of the war, that Putin managed to cleanse Russia of its internal opposition, the real opposition, not the phony opposition that sits in the Russian parliament and pretends to play the role of the opposition whilst being effectively in political bed with the Kremlin, but the real opposition. Given the fact that Putin continues to enjoy the overwhelming public support from the people, I cannot possibly see that anyone of the oligarchs who are also subordinated to the Kremlin, who have been grabbed by their throats by Russia's security agencies, would try to change Russia's course of action. So if there's going to be a regime change, it's going to be because the military and the security services would be blaming Putin for being too soft and actually trying to find a way out of this deadlock, because the kind of the frustration began occurring after Putin's press secretary Peskov effectively admitted that Russia began withdrawing its forces from the outskirts of Kyiv after Putin's personal intervention and after Putin's personal order. It didn't go down really well with the Russian military, and nor with those nationalistic elements in the Russian society who want this war to be successful. And Putin began taking a lot of heat as a result of that. So I can possibly see that there may be a plot breeding. And again, you know, if there's going to be any attempt to change Russia's course of action, the military will intervene, as well as Russia's security services will intervene. But if any regime is going to take place, it's going to be for someone who is going to be even more radical than Putin and more dangerous for the West.
It's a fascinating insight, albeit rather sobering. Alexey Muraviev, appreciate your time today.
Thank you.